Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that touches the core of human experience and faith, something deeply personal, yet universally felt. Have you ever gone through a moment where life felt like it had collapsed around you? Where the weight of grief or confusion made it hard to breathe? When the very thing, or person, you leaned on for strength suddenly wasn't there anymore? Moments where you felt broken inside, like the pieces of your heart were scattered beyond repair? Maybe you've been there, maybe you're there now. If so, you might understand, at least in part, what the disciples of Jesus went through. Today, we'll walk through their journey, how they were called from simple beginnings, how they were filled with incredible hope, and how that hope was violently shaken by fear and loss. And yet, in the midst of their heartbreak and fear, a message of peace found them. What does that mean for us, here and now, in the 21st century, living through our own struggles, disappointments, and heartbreaks? Let's explore this together. Let's begin by remembering who the disciples were. The Gospels tell us they came from ordinary, often struggling backgrounds: fishermen, tax collectors, tradesmen. In modern terms, they lived paycheck to paycheck, unsure where their next meal would come from or how they'd make it through the week. These were people with burdens we can relate to: financial strain, social rejection, and emotional fatigue. Then Jesus said to them, "Follow me." And somehow, despite all their uncertainties, they responded. They didn't hesitate or try to explain why they couldn't. The presence and voice of Jesus drew them more powerfully than anything they knew. They left behind the life they understood, for a future they couldn't yet see. Let's not gloss over that. Imagine the emotional courage it took to walk away from everything stable: family, work, familiarity, for the unknown. That decision was deeply human. It meant sacrifice, it meant risk, and above all, it meant hope. Eventually, Peter, often the most outspoken of the group, asked the question probably weighing on all their hearts. He said, "Look, we've left everything and followed you. What then will there be for us?" It's not a selfish question. It's the raw, honest voice of someone who's surrendered everything and now wonders, was it worth it? Is there something at the end of this road? And Jesus' answer wasn't vague or distant. It was full of promise. He said, "Truly I tell you, in the new world, when the Son of Man sits on his glorious throne, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel." Can you imagine what that meant to them? These were men society overlooked, yet Jesus promised them honor, authority, and a future far greater than they could imagine. That promise became their anchor. It gave them purpose and strength. They believed they were walking toward a destiny worth everything. But then the hope, the very life they had built their future on, was suddenly shattered. The teacher they trusted, the one they believed would change everything, was targeted for death. It started in the Garden of Gethsemane. Soldiers came with weapons and chains. Their moment of peace turned into panic. In the chaos, Peter grabbed a sword and tried to protect Jesus, cutting off the ear of a servant. But even then, Jesus told him to stop. The disciples must have felt helpless, desperate. They couldn't stop what was coming. The one they called life was taken from them, dragged away in the night. The same hands that healed the sick and fed the hungry were now bound in chains. The voice that spoke of peace was silenced by violence. They watched everything they had hoped for unravel, and they could do nothing. What followed was even harder. The trial, the humiliation, the brutal crucifixion, the master they loved and followed, publicly tortured, mocked, and killed. And then came the fear. The authorities didn't stop at Jesus. They started coming after his followers too. "You were with him," they said. The disciples weren't just grieving, they were now targets. Grief turned into terror. They weren't just mourning a friend, they were afraid for their lives. So, they hid. They found a room and shut the doors. But it wasn't just the room they sealed, it was their whole being. They were emotionally wrecked, mentally exhausted, and spiritually numb. Everything they had built their lives on had just died on a cross. Their silence wasn't just fear, it was heartbreak. It was the deep kind of sorrow that makes you forget how to hope, forget how to pray. They didn't know what to believe anymore. They only knew how to survive. While the disciples sat in that room, the shutters drawn, speaking in hushed voices, something unimaginable happened. Though they had run in fear, though their faith was shaken and their hope shattered, Jesus had not abandoned them. The tomb was real, but it wasn't final. On the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being locked where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." Can you picture that moment? They're sitting in fear. Their thoughts are racing. Their eyes are swollen from tears, their hands shaking from anxiety. Then Jesus appears, alive, and his first words, not, "Where were you?" Not, "Why did you run?" but, "Peace be with you." This wasn't just a greeting, it was healing. These men had seen their world collapse. They had failed, they had doubted, and now the very one they thought they had lost stood before them, offering not condemnation, but peace. It was the peace they didn't believe they could feel again. The kind of peace that meets you, not after you've figured everything out, but right in the middle of your pain, confusion, and regret. It was the peace that says, "I see you, I still love you, and I'm not done with you." That story is beautiful, but it's not just history, it speaks to us. Because we all, at some point, sit in rooms like that. Maybe not with wood-locked doors and drawn curtains, but with deep emotional pain. Maybe life hasn't just disappointed you, it's broken you. Maybe you've lost someone you couldn't imagine living without. Maybe your prayers have been met with silence. Or maybe you're overwhelmed by financial pressure, strained relationships, depression, or anxiety that refuses to let go. And so we retreat. Not to protect our bodies, but to guard our hearts. We stop hoping. We stop expecting. We go quiet. But friends, just as Jesus stepped into that locked room, he can step into your pain. That same peace he offered them, he offers you now. You don't have to have the right words. You don't need perfect faith. You just need to be open, even in your brokenness. The beauty of the resurrection is this. The one who overcame death isn't limited by walls, by fear, or by how far you've fallen. There is no pain too deep, no regret too bitter that can keep him from reaching you. When he said, "Peace be with you," he meant it for every aching soul, then and now. The disciples were ordinary people. They believed, then suffered, then doubted. But in the end, they encountered something greater than all of it. Jesus, alive. Not angry, not distant, but full of peace. And if your life feels like it's in pieces today, please know this. You're not alone. You're not forgotten. And most importantly, you're not beyond the reach of resurrection. The same Jesus who entered their fear-filled room can walk right into yours. It's my prayer that his peace, real peace, not a shallow comfort, finds its way into your pain today. And if all you can do is whisper hope, even if it feels weak or uncertain, let that whisper rise, because he hears it, and he will come. Thank you for spending this time with us today. What are your thoughts? Have you experienced a moment when hope felt gone but somehow returned? We'd love to hear your story in the comments below. And if this message spoke to you, or you believe it could encourage someone else, please consider sharing it. Until next time, peace be with you.